Hey folks, Ken here. Just a quick update, a bit of work done on the filter yesterday. So as you can possibly see, rather the trickle filter, I have it in place as I did before, but I've now rolled with the help of a friend. She's made a drum, has decided to wash it at a very inopportune time as they do. So what we've done is we've put the return in place. So 3-inch pipe here, 3-inch down to 2-inch, and then I have a 50mm straight connector in here, which the 2-inch rubber connector grips onto nicely, going into 50mm pipe right around. And as you see, I had to use 45s in the corner there because my spin drifter air return is already in the corner there, and I certainly didn't want to hassle of moving that. So we just moved around that, and then I have all my air off, by the way, just so as you can hear me. I put it's actually a 40mm tank connector, and the reason I went with the 40mm one is you can see at the back the outer diameter of it is 50mm, so the 50mm rubber connector fits nicely over it. The thing about these is that they're a lot bigger when you see them in real life than what I imagined. So I took the 50 home and I compared it, and I said, God, it's very big and it's a big hole to drill. So I went back and got the 40mm, and it's big enough. It's a slightly smaller opening, but it is well above my water line. And even if I turn the pumps off and let the water settle, it actually starts to flow over into the gully here before it goes anywhere near that. So it's well above the water line, so that's great. So it was a handy enough job, very hard getting all the angles right, and even so there's one there now, it's only a tiny little bit out, and you know, we could have swore we had them all right. What I may do is, now the question is, will I ever want to take that line of pipe out? But in case I do, it's a big job to sort of get that full run out. So what I was thinking to do, I originally was going to put a union in the middle of the piece on the 45s there, because there's not enough room to get a union in. But what I might do when I have my mate back next week, because we're going to do the input, then I don't have the pump. So this was the guts of about, I'd say, 3 hours work yesterday. But I might just cut it in or about here and stick in a rubber connector, just so if I do have any maintenance or want to clean it or do something for whatever reason, that it'll be a lot easier to handle and take out. I might even cut here and put even one I don't know to solve that being, not that being offline. You'd want to look hard to see it. And what I did earlier anyway was I got my butt pump, dropped it into the filter, into the biochamber, and just pumped a bit of water up here for a few minutes, and it flowed straight back through. There was a good flow actually. It sort of moved, came through and sort of landed about here. It'd be interesting to see. There's no media in it at the minute, so it just had no restriction whatsoever. Interesting to see what type of flow I get when the media is actually in it. But there was no leaks. That was the important thing. So I'll see anyway when he comes back next week if I'm going to take it out again and cut it and put in those rubber connectors. It's better. I'd need 2 people to do it. Even, to be honest, these wall connectors, while they're great and very sturdy, they're a bit too sturdy almost, and you need to give a very good pull to get them out and a very good pull to get them back in. And they do have these sort of covers on them that clip over. There's absolutely no need for these things, to be honest, because those pipes are going absolutely nowhere. They just feel very over-engineered, certainly for the job I have them to do. Also, the other thing I did was I got a non-return valve. I mentioned before I had the issue, so this is the pump to the back of my pond that water falls down into the main pond. When the electricity goes, gravity being gravity, looks to equalise the levels of both ponds, and the back is slightly higher being a waterfall, obviously. It goes to equalise, so it flows back through the return, and it doesn't actually get to equalise because what it does is flows water down into the main pond, but of course there's an overflow on that, and it just overflows into the gutter. So the problem was that there's ever a power cut. Now there's been a couple in the last 6 weeks, but I do work from home a lot, so luckily I was here. So what I just do is I come out, I turn off the waterfall pump, and I close the valve here, and that stops it trying to equalize itself. However, if I wasn't here, what would happen is within the space of about half an hour, both levels would equalize. A lot of the water would have overflown into the gutter, and then when the electricity comes back, the drum will go mad because the water level will be too low, and it'll be on an endless wash cycle. And you know, I've seen that happen, and I've stopped it fairly quickly. Would it stop itself? I don't know. It would certainly stop when the pumps run out of water, when it drops that low. But anyway, I don't want that to happen. So the obvious thing to do, so there is a sort of a little ball on a spring in here, and it's sprung in that direction, so it'll be closed now, but the pressure of the pump will open it. The big question is, how much will that restrict the water flow? It definitely will. Everybody tells me that, but will it be noticeable on the waterfall? If it's not great, you know, turning up a pump to compensate it for at the moment, it's not something I really want to do. Now, having said that, it's the back part of the pond they don't use in the winter. I shut it down in the winter, so in the next couple of weeks or so it'll be shut down. But what I can do is, if the worst comes to the worst, you can actually open it up and take the internals out, and it'll just flow straight through like an ordinary pipe. Means I just won't have a non-return valve. The irrigation place where I get my pipe work, they said to me, oh, maybe a flat one will be better, and they were making me up a thing out of brass with connectors, and it looked terrible. I preferred the sort of match, you know. So I may be going for aesthetics over function here, but I'd say if that doesn't work, I may have to look and see if there's something else available. But they're the ones that are readily available and are made by the people who make this pipe work. So I will, I'm just letting it cure. I only did it there about 2 hours ago, so I'll give it maybe 4 hours to make sure the solvent weld is fully cured. It should be, but just to be on the safe side. And that's it. So the next job is, I have bits here. So I got a couple of straight connectors because they are handy for doing stuff like that, as I said, or if you cut a pipe too short, or have a length of pipe and 2 bits of pipe and you need to join them to create one long run. They're handy and they're cheap, so I got a couple of those. I've used one already. I have a couple of ball valves, so they will go on this run out of here, one either side of the pump. I wasn't going to put one on the filter, the trickle tower side of the pump, and the reason being that, you know, it's not as though it's like the pond where water will keep flowing. But I said, for the sake of what was €40, it's probably easier, because if I do disconnect the pump, there would be, you know, there's quite a long run of pipe there from all the way up here. You know, there's about a, what is it, I'm 6 foot, it's slightly more than a 6 foot, what do you call it, head there that it needs to get. So there'll be a fair amount of water. So if I disconnect it without closing the valve, there'll be a lot of water on the floor. A minor issue, it dries up and it's a concrete floor. I don't really care. But anyway, so I'm going to do that. And I got a couple of rubber connectors, so they're 50mm 1.5 inch rubber connectors, and I'll just use those either side of the pump as well to make it easier to disconnect if I have to. That's that. And then the pump comes from Coastal Koi with, where do I have them here? I've one of them there, 2 inch solvent well connectors with a 1.5 inch reducer. And of course I don't use imperial pipe. The reason I don't use imperial pipe is because you can't get it in the south. I know guys who do decide to go the imperial route because obviously the koi suppliers in the UK and even the guys up in Northern Ireland supply imperial rather than metric. But metric, there's an irrigation place very close to me where I live in North County Dublin here, and they only sell metric, so that's why I went metric. So I had to get these again. These are only about a tenner each, but that's a 2-inch thread onto the filter with a bit of, onto the pump rather, with a bit of PFTE tape, and then that's a 63mm with a 50mm reducer, then pipe. And I got myself a few 45s. That is the one, actually, that's what Coastal Koi send with it. That's a 2.5-inch, I think, down to, although it doesn't look, it looks like bigger down to 2-inch, doesn't it? It is, it's not a 1.5-inch, because 1.5-inch is very close to 50mm, and that's definitely not 1.5-inch. But anyway, I can't use it, it's no use to me. I have another one of those there. That's the that's the Union I got that I was going to use there, but I probably won't use it. And you can see it won't, or would it? It might just fit there. Actually, it might just, but the rubber Union is probably a lot less hassle and gives you a little bit of adjustment as well. And I'm probably lucky here. I'm in a, although it gets cold and it's not insulated, it's very well sealed. The filter shed here, so you know, even looking at my rubber connectors that are there, well, they'll be 2 years in April. Certainly no sign of any cracking or anything, so it's probably a cheaper and as good a solution. And so all these and the bits you see along the wall there, and 10 meters of 50 pipe came to the princely sum of 400, well, just under 400 euro, 380 euro. So expensive job, you know. I was just thinking that between the cost of the Trickle tower and the hardware to put it in, you know, we talk about 1,200 euro or what, or in around £1,000. You know, maybe more even, because I had to buy an extra pump from Coastal Koi, and that works out, I think it's 260 euro. Plus I got hit with another 60 euro duty and VAT on customs. That's due to arrive probably Tuesday. So that's it. Going well, as I say. I'll probably put the media in during the week and be ready when we connect up the pump. As I say, the hardest bit is done. That was definitely all the joints and the geometry, and maybe we didn't help ourselves that we tried to do it all in one piece. But Keith is fairly good at this stuff, and as I say, there's a couple of bits, or a tiny little bit, a mil out here or there, but not enough to make a difference. As I say, I might add a rubber connector just to give me a bit of flexibility to adjust things. You know, one thing is maybe to have it easier to disconnect. If I had a rubber connector there to disconnect, you know, the filter when I want, time comes when I want to clean it out. It shouldn't be that often, because it is, that output there is after the drum, so there shouldn't be any solids. Of course there will be some fines that will get through the drum, and I'd say once a year maybe. But even if I could, you know, stick a bit of pipe in here, stick a hose in it, and then just hose it out in situ and run the hose out the door and into the drain, something like that. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. So that's it. I'll let you know in the next video, probably next week, when I have the input connected up for that, and hopefully have it running on the Sunday. And I'll let you know how the non-return valve goes, if anybody's used those. And I'm sure if you're using them on a return, they're grand. Probably not noticeable. My concern is I'm using it on a waterfall that's quite a wide. I'll just show you. Those of you not familiar with my waterfall, and we have 2 dogs out here playing. Again, fishies are all fighting fit. Temperature of ponds about 13 degrees. Air temperature around 15. Was up to 18 for a time yesterday. So that's you can see the width of the waterfall when I get it going, and all these bloody leaves, wherever they come from, they just create crap. There's been a lot of wind here over the last few now for the last week really, and it blows all sorts of crap despite the net into the pond. I'm nearly looking forwards for the covers to go on to get away from all this. Anyway, so I will we'll see how that goes. I don't fancy cranking up the pump. I had it running at about 60%. It's a 22,000 litre pump, and I've ordered the same again for the Trickle tower. And you might say to yourself, do you need a pump that's strong for a Trickle tower? And the answer, I'm being told, is yes, and it's because of the head height. Mate of mine who helped me put this in, he has one the exact same, and he put a 10,000 on it initially thinking there'd be no problem, and he said it just wasn't enough. The flow was very low, and he ended up putting a 20,000 on it, and that did the job. So that's why I ordered 22. As you can see, my two pumps on my main pond, it's a 20,000. That's the older version of the Aqua Eco, and the newer one is a 22,000, and that's what I have ordered. So I'll probably put the controller over and above that, and then I'll probably have to spur another socket off here to somewhere. I'm running out of space on that board. I should have done a bigger board, because this goes into my control. So what it means is that when the level drops, the water drops, the filter shuts itself down, and it takes the pumps with it, but they have to be in here. So I'll have the 3 pumps. Now you might say, is that overloading that circuit? It probably would be if I had them all running full, and I don't, and I probably never will either. I mean, that one's up, I have the waterfall, so I have this one here running at about 75% at the moment, 145 watts. The two of them running together are normally up around the 200 watts, and I'd say with the 3, I'll try and keep it again around, it's the pull that I want, really is the thing. So I'll try and keep them running, probably again not exceeding in total the 200 watts, so it should be fine. So that's it. I'll turn my air pumps back on, and I will update you next time. Thanks a lot. Cheers.